Welcome to another episode of Touring the AFC South. I am your host, Mike Patton, and on this episode, we're going to be talking about Week One matchup that I love to see. I want to see it. You know, the Rook versus the number one offense, the number one defense in the NFL, the Denver Broncos. And I thought of no one better to bring on to talk about that than my guy out there in the Mile High City, Justin Adams. What's going on, man?
Mike, man, I'm doing well. Bless my brother. You know what? We just finished eating dinner a little bit ago. So I said, look, I told my wife, the dinner was great. Thank you so much for preparing it. But I got to go and talk about a little bit of football. So she said, okay, you're fine. Go ahead and do it. But I think I have some more fatherly duties to do tonight, putting the kids to bed, bath time. You know how that goes as a father yourself. So, you got to give and take a little bit here. But excited to be on tonight.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you for coming on. Of course, we're going to talk about the Denver Broncos. Like I mentioned, the number one defense in the NFL last season. We're going to talk about them versus the Tennessee Titans and more. But of course, with every episode, we open up with the Get It Off Your Chest segment. And in this episode, I want to talk about anything that can happen. There's preseason rankings. There's preseason rankings of teams. And everyone wants to go by those and say this team can't do anything, or this team's going to do this, or this team's going to do that. You got to also understand the preseason rankings are just really there to kind of give you a bench point or benchmark to start with. It doesn't mean these teams are going to necessarily be this bad. Doesn't mean these teams can be necessarily this good. It just means, hey, this is a bench point to kind of, let you know where this team could potentially start at. Just give you a prime example. Houston Texans a couple years ago. No one picked them to win the division. And CJ Stroud was a rookie at that time. They made like 11 transactions to add to that team. You had a rookie head coach, and they do nothing but win the division when no one expected them to win the division. So, be careful buying into these preseason predictions and saying that all the teams are going to be terrible, or this team's going to be that, this team's going to be this, that, and the other. A few breaks, a few good things go your way, that team could be, worst looking team to best looking team, just like that. That's why I just want to be careful, Justin, to tell all the people that, buying into all the different things about different teams, so, people tend to do that a lot when it comes to preseason predictions and practice, prognostications.
100%. And can I join on with that train, by the way, that you all can I join on that bandwagon?
Yeah.
Because, last time that I checked, championships aren't generally won when it's warm outside. They're won when it's cold outside, right? I get the Super Bowl in a dome or, in Florida or Hawaii, whatever, all these other different places. Not Hawaii, but, I wish it was. That'd be nice. The reality is this, is that football games aren't won in the preseason. They're not won because your team is 3-0 in the preseason. That's cute and that's great and all that, but it's not won then. It's not won in September. It's not won in October. It's not won in November. But come December, come January, you want to be still playing in February. That's when it happens. There's going to be so many different things that happens. You have injuries, right? Key injuries to players. When do guys come back? When do you play teams, right? That's important. Are they coming back? Are they on the road? Are they at home? Are they playing on Thursday night? Are they playing on Friday night like we're going to see, right? There's so many different things that you're going to see throughout the year that are going to jump into the story of what happens during the season. So the main thing is this. Enjoy your team. Everybody has a legitimate shot in getting it done, but it's all about, can your team stay healthy? Can they stay hot, and can they avoid those long losing streaks? That's really what it all comes down to. And if they could be able to do that, then you have a great opportunity to be able to win.
All right. Mistake-free football is the key to me.
Yes.
The less mistakes you make, the better your chances to win. It doesn't matter how bad your team may look in terms of talent-wise. You have to have some talent, of course, obviously.
Sure.
But you can't get out there and have a bunch of talent and then make a bunch of mistakes and then expect you're going to win every single week. That doesn't happen. I mean, the only place I saw that happen, and that was oxymoron to me, was the St. Louis Rams the year after they won the Super Bowl. They were making all kind of mistakes defensively, but they were still winning because their offense was that explosive, and then eventually it caught up to them.
Yes, it not only caught up to him, it caught up to him in the playoffs against the Saints, if I remember correctly. And
Hmm.
here's the funny part about that. I love your point. How did, if I take you back a little bit, and fans listen to the show, how did the Rams lose that game in the playoffs? They lost it because of a muff punt. Take a look at that game. They lost that playoff game on the road because of a muff punt, and they had all the momentum. They would have had the ball with less than 2 minutes left. Muff punt, Saints recover, ball game. If you turn over the ball, you will lose. It doesn't matter who you are. You turn over the football, especially in the NFL, you will lose. And when you look at this matchup with the Broncos and Titans, because I know we got to get stuff off our chest, the greatest equalizer in any football game is turnovers. And if the Broncos turn over the ball, then they're going to find themselves with a big old L at home. So that's what's going to be the defining factor in this ball game. We have a whole lot to talk about for sure, but it will come down to that this season. Can you protect the rock? And those who do, and the other team that takes the ball away, those usually are the teams that are standing up at the end with a W.
That's right. That's right. We're going to get into that matchup between the Broncos and the Tennessee Titans. Of course, we're going to talk a little Broncos defense versus Titan offense, but we do have to take a quick commercial break before we do. Got to visit the Tour in the AFC South inbox. Of course, we have a comment from Top Tier. It says no turnovers and minimal penalties, especially when you're an up and coming team. It stunts your growth.
100%.
That's true. That's true.
I can't agree with that more. And great, 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 great comment, by the way. Here's the thing: you're a young team. You're on the road in a very hostile environment. Trust me. In Power Field at Mile High is very difficult to play. Elevation is no joke. It is a real thing. So you have a quarterback who's going to come into a place with a defense that will blitz him. By the way, with a defense that is really good, they have stars all over the place. The last thing you want to do is to give the ball away and have to get away from what you want to do on offense, which is run the football at first and then throw the ball, right? Be in front of the sticks, give you a great chance on third down is short, rather than third down and long all day because these guys will come after you. 64 sacks last year. They're going to come after you, right? So you got to make sure that you give yourself a shot to be able to go and pick up first down after first down and then go after big plays when they're available.
Right, right. Now, like I mentioned before, we're going to take a quick commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little Broncos defense versus the Titans offense here on Touring the AFC South with your host, Mike Patton. We'll be right back.
EBO Beard Butter and EBO Beard Wash are two of the best beard grooming products for men worldwide. They help promote growth, keep your beard moisturized and soft, and enhance your overall upkeep of your facial hair. And with the new promo code MPAFC10, you can get 10% off of these products. Just go to www.etsy.com/shop/EBO Beard Butter. Again, that's www.etsy.com/shop/EBO Beard Butter. And again, the promo code MPAFC10. Again, MPAFC10, where you can get 10% off any products except for beard boxes. So treat your beard better today by going to get this the EBO Beard Butter and EBO Beard Wash.
All right, and we are back on Touring the AFC South. Now, if y'all weren't paying attention, Justin was grooving with the music over there, the commercial. I looked up, I was like, man, he's about to create a whole video over here.
I mean, you talking about that beer music. I'm like, dog, can we get to another commercial break? Let's go.
Well, I will say this one: the next commercial doesn't have quite as exciting music, but hey, it's cool though. But
beer, bring it on back when you get a chance.
All right, I got you. But of course, like I mentioned before the break, we got to talk a little Broncos defense versus Titans offense. Now, like you mentioned before the commercial break, Cameron Ward, #1 overall pick, versus the number one defense of last season. Now, it's going to be interesting. You do have some weapons here, and Tony Pollard, running back for the Titans, and Calvin Ridley, number one wide receiver. But other than that, you have Tyler Lockett, that's not quite the same guy. You have Alec Aomanor. You have a Van Jefferson. He's been on multiple teams. You have a Chim DK. You have a Gunnar Helm, a Chiga Quanko, a little bit inconsistent at tight end. You have but basically a bunch of guys that outside of Pollard and Ridley that are you're still trying to figure out what they can bring to this team. So with that being known, what do you expect from this defense to kind of attack Cameron Ward and this Tennessee Titans skill position group?
You'll see a lot of pressures. The Broncos did that last year. Vance Joseph, according to what was it? What site did I go on, if I may? It's cited to Pro Football Focus or whatever.com or whatever, but they blitzed the seventh most time in the NFL. So some would say they blitzed the third most times, 33%. Some will say 29%. Either way, Cameron Ward will see a lot of bodies that will go at him during this game, especially if it's third down and long. I remember last year against the Jets, for example, where Aaron Rodgers was the quarterback then, there was a blitz that he didn't see late in the ball game, and it was a blindside blitz, and he got hit right in his back. And you're going to see a lot of that. That's one of the main reasons why the Broncos had 64 sacks last year, was because of, yes, for sure, the guys up front, they were able to go and get after you with 4. But, man, when they brought that extra pressure, it just made them that much tougher. And so that's one thing I can imagine Cameron Ward will do. My question is this: can he make plays out of the pocket with pressure being in his face? Got to remember guys like Zach Allen, right? He had 8.5 sacks last year. He's going to be right there. Was just a monster last season. On the outside, you have Jonathan Cooper as well as Nick Bonito. Nick Bonito with 13.5 sacks. Jonathan Cooper with 10.5 sacks as well. I didn't even talk about John Franklin Myers, who's the other DN, right? He had 7.5 sacks. And so you look at all the different pieces that are there. The Broncos had 6 players with 5 or more sacks last year. They're going to get after you. So what do you do as an offense? What's the biggest thing that the Titans can do? You got to run that football. They made a huge investment in the offseason on that offensive line. You know what that really mirrors, actually? That mirrors what the Broncos did last year. Think about this. The Broncos invested in their offensive line. They made sure that said, hey, we're going to make sure that we get ourselves the right tackle. We're going to make sure that we take care of the offensive line. Hey, let's go bring Ben Powers in to be our left guard, right? We have Quinn Miners as well, who's already here, who was drafted, right? Take care of your center position as well. When you look at the Tennessee Titans, what did they do? Former Bronco Lloyd Cushenberry III, he's right there, right in the center, taking care of business as well, and was able to add other pieces too. So they need to run the football and stay away from third down and long situations. Stay down from those obvious passing areas where you could say, okay, Pat Surtain's going to go and be lined up with Calvin Ridley, or Jahdae Barron, who's not even starting in your first-round draft pick. He's going to come off the bench and be able to do some things out of the nickel, right? And so you want to stay away from those type of situations and be able to play in front of the sticks. Make sure that you have third down and short in order to be successful.
Yeah, you mentioned it. Of course, they did add to that offensive line. You mentioned Lloyd Cushenberry. That was 2024. They added him the summer of 2024, the offseason of 2024. They did this offseason add his former Pittsburgh offensive tackle Dan Moore. They added former Detroit Lions offensive guard Kevin Zeitler. And then, of course, when adding Dan Moore, they switched over J.C. Latham from left tackle to right tackle now. So, got a lot of new pieces, added pieces, and then also put pieces in different places to kind of bring up, their best group or best 5, I should say. So, with the money they've invested, I mean, you would expect that this 5 would be able to do some work in there. And, I'm wondering what the Denver Broncos are going to do. Are they going to run blitz as well, or are they just going to, practice their fits with a guy like Dre Greenlaw out there and Tuafonga out there as well? The new guys from the 49ers.
I don't think they'll run blitz initially until it's an issue, right? I think they believe in the guys they have up front so much in their 3-4 defense that they'll be able to go and stop the run. And honestly, it really starts with Zach Allen. I mean, he is so good. John Franklin Myers was a guy who was picked up for a bag of potato chips last year, and he was dominant. I believe the Broncos picked him up in a trade from the Jets, and he was just dominant last season. And that's really the thing, is that In the preseason, there were teams that were able to move the ball on the Broncos, right? I remember they played against the 49ers and really had a lackluster effort to get things started. But when this team turns it on, they're very difficult to stop. And so, again, I would expect you to A, run the football, but B, Cameron Ward could run a little bit. And I'm not saying run like Michael Vick run. What I mean by that is he could move around in the pocket and still be very accurate outside the pocket. Why don't you do that? Right? What's the easiest what's the easiest person to be able to hit? Somebody who's standing still, right? And so a lot of times you can move him around, be able to make him a moving target, give him an opportunity to be able to go and find guys open down the field, right? And so it'll be interesting to see how it all transpires. On paper, mainly on paper, this seems like something where, hey, the Broncos should have absolutely no problem. But I'm here to tell you, it's the NFL. Anything can happen, and these are all professionals. So it'll start up front from there.
Yeah, definitely going to be fun to watch. The biggest matchup, now you kind of dove into it a little bit. Calvin Ridley versus Patrick Surtain, the second. I am so looking forward to that. Alabama versus Alabama.
Yes,
Alabama
sir.
in the past versus Alabama the future. It's going to be interesting to watch to see because Calvin Ridley, he just seems more comfortable this year with the Tennessee Titans. He's taking on more leadership. The wide receiver room looks to him as their leader as well. So he just seems more comfortable. So I'm interested to see how many times he's able to get Pat Surtain and how many times that Pat Surtain is able to get him. Because, as a defensive back, you're going to get got sometime. It just is what it is. But it's just a matter of how many times versus, the times you are successful.
Well, I don't know, man, because last year Pat Surtain only gave up 306 yards all season. That's the reason why he was the defensive player of the year. Had 4 interceptions as well. Oh, and by the way, he did that in 17 games, but technically it was 16 because in a home game against the Chargers, he was out after the first play due to a concussion. So you're looking at a guy who was just dominant last year, now stepping into his prime. He's paid. He's ready to do his thing. And he's really the linchpin of that defense, right? He is the focal point of the D because he allows Vance Joseph to be able to blitz to do all the different things as well. So it could be one thing where will he be matched up outside with Pat Surtain all game? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe he'll be in the slot, right? Calvin really could be from there too. So we'll see what will happen. But you do need to have those superstar players make something happen. And Calvin Ridley is your number one wide receiver. He has to be able to make some plays against his Alabama, I won't say former teammate, but Alabama alum as well. So it'll be very interesting to see how Ridley will be able to play. I'll just say this from an Alabama standpoint. Let's just thank God Florida State isn't out there playing right now because, man, that looked bad last week. So we'll just keep on making sure that Alabama just smiles like the good old days and not like how it was last week because, man, that was nasty out there in Florida State.
Man, that was Bubba Sparks ugly. That was Bubba Sparks ugly. Good gracious.
Yeah.
That was bad. But it's just gonna be interesting too, just to see some of the guys like Hufanga play and how he's able to match his style with the Denver Broncos defense because he takes a lot of chances. So it's gonna be interesting to see that.
He's a thumper too, and so he's which is one of the reasons why he dealt with injuries. I mean, let's call it what it is, and so he's a guy that is a big old thumper, and so he does take chances. So what does that mean? You could take advantage of those chances. But I tell you the one way you don't do it. If you don't run that football, you'll have no shot. Here's the thing about the Broncos last year: they gave up the 3rd fewest rushing yards in the NFL, the 2nd fewest rushing yards per carry. So you got to pick your poison here. You got to figure out a way how to move the ball. And the number one way that this team will be able to do well, talk about the Tennessee Titans, is on the opposite side. The defense has to force some turnovers. And you have to force another young quarterback in Bo Nix to make some mistakes. That's the best way you're going to be able to go and not just stay in this game, but win the game.
Well, we're going to definitely get into the defense, the Titans defense versus the Broncos offense. Definitely going to be some fun times there, and definitely going to be some big boys moving some furniture around. We're going to talk about that more after this commercial break.
A shift. A shift is something that happens and changes the dynamics. And that's what happened when Garrett Logistics was born. After 10 years as a sales pro in the logistics world of sporting goods, John Garrett decided to pivot to the world of freight and start a brokerage. So you're saying to yourself, Why trust Garrett Logistics? Well, Garrett Logistics helps shippers improve overall workflow, along with increased on-time pickup and delivery percentages. Last-minute loads, multi-drop pickups, and more are part of the services with Garrett Logistics. They're available Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., and Saturday, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., all times Central Standard Time. So give them a ring at 615-400-8484. That's 615-400-8484, or you can email them at john@garrettlogistics.co or visit their website at garrettlogistics.co. Garrett Logistics, where the motto is, it's not just freight to us, it's your business.
All right, we are back on touring the AFC South with your host, Mike Patton. And like I mentioned before the break, you got Broncos offense versus that nasty, nasty Titans defense. And, we got to start up front when it comes to the Titans defense. And you got two big old boys up front. You got Tavondre Sweat and Jeffrey Simmons. Now, I will say this about Jeffrey Simmons. Jeffrey Simmons did lose 20 pounds this offseason.
Okay.
So
Come on, baby.
he's a little slimmer and he's moving around a little bit quicker.
Come on, baby.
So yeah, he looks like he's the most in shape 300-pounder. He's the most in shape 300-pounder I've seen. I can't remember this in shape looking 300 pounds. I mean, he doesn't even really have a stomach. I'm like, how is this possible? But anyway, he's definitely looking in great shape. Definitely it's going to be a problem, and I think they're going to move him around a lot on the D line. So that'll be something to watch as well. So how are the Broncos going to deal with these two big boys? You got Meatloaf and you got Big Jeff. Well, you got Medium Jeff now in there.
well, hopefully that diet will stick a little bit more, and he can lose a little bit more weight, so he can be able to be pushed around. Hopefully, if you're the Broncos, right? First of all, Ben Powers and Quinn Miners. Let me give you another guy, by the way, who had a belly. Still has a little bit of a belly himself, and that's Quinn Miners, the right guard for the Broncos, and he is just tremendous out there on the field. And he's one of those guys where you look at it and say, hey, he's pushing furniture. You talking about pushing furniture? That young man pushes a whole lot of furniture. He was a first-team All-Pro last year. Was a guy who I believe was a third-round pick, if I'm not mistaken. He was. Let me see if I get this right, because you got to make sure that you're right when you're talking on the mic with you, my friend. Yeah, third-round pick back in 2021. And he's just one of those guys who's continued to blossom. He was known for his belly, shaped up a little bit, got in better shape. Still has a little bit of the belly around there, but he's pushed a lot of guys around it. He's one of those tough guys to be able to deal with. So you're saying what's going to be a great matchup? Give me Quinn Miners right there to be able to go and help out with the rushing attack. Another thing, too, is the Broncos switched up their rushing scheme as well. They're more of an outside zone team. But what this is going to do is, yes, it's going to help them to go and get outside and run the football. But another thing, too, is this. It's going to help out with the play action pass. And that will help out Bo Nix, too, to be able to get the ball downfield, to get to guys like Evan Ingram as well as Cortland Sutton. And so it's all about being able to figure out a way how to continue to move this ball down the field. And the Broncos have decided that their outside zone rushing system is going to be the best for this team. And I love it. As long as these guys have an identity, you could go and get the D lineman moving from side to side a little bit. What's a quicker way than to tire out an opposing team, especially in the first game of the season? Make those big boys move. And so that's what the Broncos are going to look to do.
I will say that's going to be key for Arden Key. Key for Arden Key. Wow. I didn't even mean to do that one, but but yeah, Arden Key is going to be very important in this game. I would say just the outside linebackers as a whole in the 3-4 defense will be. But you mentioned him, Cortland Sutton. He is the number one wide receiver for the Denver Broncos, and I will say Jerry Sneed is he got off of the PUP list. He passed his physical, so he should be out there when it comes to Sunday. Of course, barring anything happening potentially, but it'll be interesting just to see these an old AFC West cornerback going against Cortland Sutton and seeing how physical L'Jarius Sneed has been, because he hasn't had any game action, any preseason action or anything. So that'll be a matchup that I'm looking forward to seeing. And just in general, the Titans cornerbacks are I would say probably one of the weakest parts. That and the outside rush are the weakest parts of this defense. So it's going to be interesting to see if Bo Nix and Sean Payton actually focus to try to attack those guys. Because if you go beyond Jarvis Brownlee and Jerry Sneed, then you've got Daryl Baker Jr. Then you've got another guy they brought in from the waiver wire from the Ravens as well. Was a really good corner, but they're not as deep there and not as talented there. So I mean, do you expect them to try to work these corners and try to make manufacture some explosive plays, especially like you mentioned with the outside run and kind of play action pass off of that potentially?
As one of my mentors used to tell me, is the sky blue? Because I was saying Denver, it's orange and blue, right? The Broncos colors. Sean Payton can't help himself. You know he wants to throw that football. He wants to see that ball in the air. No matter how much he's going to say we're going to stick with the run and all this. Come on now. They want to throw the football. And Bo Nix is going to have plenty of opportunities to throw, especially to a guy like Evan Ingram. But that's why it's so important to be able to make sure that the middle of your offensive line is going to be solid in this game, because Bo Nix is not going to have a lot of time if he can't step up in the pocket and be able to deliver the ball like he wants to, right? So get those big boys tired, step up in the pocket, throw the rock. I could definitely see the Broncos being able to go and say, hey, we got some new toys and we really want to show it in the first game. And Evan Ingram is going to get the ball a lot. I mean, he's just a matchup nightmare. And he's very smooth. I mean, he had one play in the preseason where he took a route. It's like a 5-yard out route. I took a 50 down the sideline. And when he did that, it was like, we haven't had that in a decade. Like, you haven't had a tight end like that since Julius Thomas. And Julius Thomas played with Peyton Manning. Like, you haven't had that in a long, long time. He also went to Jacksonville as well. And so when you are able to have that type of piece on your offense, that opens up everybody else. It opens up a Marvin Mims who had a scare last week in practice with a groin injury, and they said everything's going to be fine, so he should be out on the field. It's going to help out a guy like Pat Bryant, who just was picked up this year as a rookie, right? It's going to help him as well to be able to go and make some plays too. So it's going to be very, very interesting. Troy Flakeland, another guy to keep an eye on too. Had a touchdown catch in a playoff game against Buffalo. Had a couple of drops too, but he is a guy who has really been making a lot of plays. The more and more that you look at this offense, the more and more you say, okay, wait a minute, they're a piece here and a piece there from really making things happen. Oh, let's not forget about your running back room too, right? With J.K. Dobbins, right? So it's going to be really, really cool to be able to see how this offense will be able to mature and grow. My biggest thing is that other teams have had a full offseason to be able to see how you could attack Bo Nix. How would he be able to spawn in year number 2? You saw this too with the Houston Texans and how CJ Stroud, he had his struggles last year, right? Because teams had a chance to be able to look at him and say, okay, this is how we can attack him and limit his impact as well. I could see the same thing happening with the Broncos too and Bo Nix as well. So that's why I always go back. If you ever hear me talk, I will always start with the running game and say start there, because it will open up everything else for your quarterback. And that's why it's so important for the Broncos to be able to master this outside running zone system, especially against a Titans defense.
Well, I will say one thing. When you talked about CJ Stroud and his offensive line, hopefully, for Bo Nix's sake, his offensive line does not turn into what Houston's offensive line turned into in 2024. Because boy, oh boy, I've never seen CJ Stroud run like that ever. I didn't see him run like that at Ohio State. I don't remember him running like that when he was getting prepared to go to college.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, wow. One of the criticisms of him coming into the NFL was he doesn't run the ball enough. Well, he surely got his laps in last year running football, and he wasn't really wanting to.
Did they have this thing called lookout blocks? That's what he was dealing with last year. You know what that is, right? Lookout blocks.
Good. Talk to him, man.
That's when an offensive lineman gets beat so bad that all he could do is turn around to the quarterback and say, "Look out!" That's what those lookout blocks are. That's pretty much what it was.
Oh yeah, they definitely had a few of those. I mean, golly, they had a lot of those, to be honest. But they called themselves fixing their offensive line this year, but as you'll probably see, it's going to be interesting there. You know, you got the immortal Lakin Tomlinson at offensive guard. You've got I mean, you just got a lot of stuff going on there. You got Ariante Ursary, who's a second round pick, is going to be starting for them at one of their tackles because Cam Robinson apparently just wasn't that great in camp. So now he's a backup. He's a swing tackle when they brought him in and paid him double digit millions to be a starter. Yeah, yeah, that's not good. That's not good at all. But like you mentioned, Bo Nix, he's definitely going to be. People are going to have the microscope on him because, of course, he took the league by storm last year. But this year, they know exactly who he is, and we've seen this before when it comes to Bo Nix. When he was at Auburn, he was took the SEC by storm for a little bit, and people caught on, and then next he went out to Oregon. Oregon, he had a pretty steady run, so I can't really say anything about there. But I just do wonder if he regresses some, and how does he overcome those regressions, and how Sean Payton, more importantly, handles those regressions as the head coach, and hopefully he doesn't fly off the handle and start treating him like a one Russell Wilson, perhaps.
I think we've already saw that. There was a game against the Raiders where Sean Payton got after Bo Nix, and Bo Nix gave it right back to him. And Sean Payton, you could tell he was just really, yeah, that's my type of guy. Coaches have those egos too, as weird as it may seem. Only in football can you go and yell right back at your boss and still have a job, right? You and I can't do that. I can't do that at
Nope.
my job. Yell at my boss, tell him off, and then be right back in there for the next live shot, right? So it's important that happens. Bo Nix spent the offseason with Drew Brees a couple of days, just learning the offense, learning how to operate, learning probably more about how to deal with his head coach and Sean Payton. But for him is this, and I don't think the majority of Bronco fans would agree with this. My thing is this: is that if he stayed the same in year 2, that'll be good enough. If you had 29 touchdowns and 12 interceptions again, that will be good enough. You just don't want to see that regression. And you want to see him play confidently. You want to see him not skip balls. You want to see him be able to get the ball out there, throw with feel, throw with accuracy. You already paid Cortland Sutton this offseason, right? You paid him in training camp, 3-year deal. So now you have your number one wide receiver. So now it's just time to say, okay, we have those pieces in place. We have a couple of wide receivers that we picked up, one in Bryant that we picked up through the draft. Now it's time to put it all together. I will say one thing that Titans fans need to expect to see will not only be, Evan Ingram getting the football at tight end, but also be prepared to see this lateral passing attack. Broncos scored several times on wide receiver screens, and they really gashed a lot of teams with that, especially getting the ball to Marvin Mims. So that'll be one of the things to say, hey, you got to go keep it on. You talked about that outside linebacker problem. That could be a huge, huge issue if your linebacker can't get out and be able to disrupt those passes. It's one thing that Sean Payton wants to do. So if you can't do that, and if you can't get out there and go get a guy like Marvin Mims, then, brother, it's going to be a long, long day in the Mile High City.
I'll tell you what, one guy I would say to watch, and he's an inside linebacker. He's a second-year guy. That would be Cedric Gray. Keep an eye out for that guy. Another guy coming off the bench that's a backup linebacker. And they were competing for the inside linebacker job next to Cody Barton, by the way, who's coming back to the Mile High Stadium.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. But another guy to watch is James Williams, former 5-star safety at the University of Miami, who is now a linebacker for the Tennessee Titans. He converted to linebacker last year. He was a 7th-round pick. And those two, it was neck and neck for who was going to be the starting linebacker opposite of Cody Barton. They were playing that good of football this offseason. So, those two guys, they jump off the screen. And eventually, those two guys, in my opinion, are going to be probably starting next to each other in the NFL. But, for right now, they're not. But, yeah, those two guys, I'm telling you, Cedric Gray or Williams is going to make a play that's going to make you say, wow, on Sunday.
I love it.
They are.
Man, it's going to be some good football.
Yep, it definitely going to be some pads popping, and it's going to be some hooting and hollering, and it's going to be some sad singing and flower bringing for somebody out there. Just a matter of who is it going to be when it comes to Sunday. But you mentioned a good point about Evan Ingram as well. Yeah, that's going to be interesting. And also, I would say the safeties and Amani Hooker, veteran safety, it's going to be interesting to see if he gets a couple matchups against Evan Ingram. Of course, he's seen him a few years here in the AFC South as well. But Justin, I want to thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for giving insight to the Denver Broncos as they host the Tennessee Titans in the season opener this Sunday. Now, Titans fans, I know you're trying to temper expectations. I know you love you some Cam Ward, but hey, just know it might be a roller coaster. It might be a smooth sail. You just don't know until you tune in on Sunday. That's all I can tell you. And then, of course, with the Broncos, you never know either because, hey, Sean Payton could want to run the football, but he could want to chuck it 20, 30, 40 times. You never know. You just have to tune in. Justin, thank you again. Can you tell everybody where they can find you on social media?
Hey, find me on X, on Instagram at Justin Adams TV. Again, Justin Adams TV. I keep it the same always. Follow me. I'll follow you right back. And hey, here's the biggest thing, man. Live your life to be a blessing. Bless somebody else. There's somebody out there who needs your hand today. Go and bless somebody else. So you can find me there. You can also find me on TV at CBS Colorado. I'm in the morning as a reporter and fill-in anchor. And you can also find me on Holy Culture Radio on the Fixed Radio Show at 5 o'clock. No, it'll be 7 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Central. I have a Sports and Faith report I do every day from Monday through Friday. So I'll be able to tune in, tap in, and hey, man, I'll see you on the other side.
There we go. Of course, you know who I am. If you've been watching the other 354 episodes of this podcast, I am your host, Mike Patton. Of course, you can find me on the artist formerly known as Twitter. Justin, you might call it X, but I can't call it X because the only X I recognize is DMX and Malcolm X. That's the only X I recognize.
Hey, Mike,
so,
before we let you go, brother, is there any way I can get some of that beer? Some of that beer stuff. Can you hook a brother up a little bit? Can we get that
done? We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it for sure.
I like
we'll talk about it. But of course, you can find me on the artist formerly on Twitter at Mike Patton 82. That's MikePatton82. You also find me on Instagram and Threads at that's THA, not THE _general_MP. Touring the AFC South, you can find on all listening platforms, whether it be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music. You name it, we are there, and we are also on the Mike Patton Network on YouTube, where you can go there, subscribe, click the bell so you don't miss any episodes, and comment. I might comment back. No, I really will. But thank you all for tuning in to this episode of Touring the AFC South. I'm your host, Mike Patton, with Justin Adams. We're out. Peace.